Ghost Protocol. The Galactic Council's central monitoring station hung like a glittering jewel against the velvet backdrop of space. Inside, Commander Vazik of the Thoraxian Guard adjusted his exoskeleton nervously as proximity alerts flashed across his command console. "Report," he mandated, 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Lieutenant Mira, a slender Cephian whose translucent skin rippled with bioluminescent patterns, gestured toward the main view screen. "Unidentified vessel detected at the outer boundary of Sector 7, sir. No transponder signal, no flight path registration." "Smugglers?" Vazik suggested, mandibles clicking with irritation. "Negative. Hull signature and mass readings indicate military-grade plating and weapon systems. It's a warship, sir." Commander Vazik's carapace stiffened. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for over 2 centuries. No species would dare violate protocol by deploying unmarked military vessels. "Send the standard hail," he ordered. "All languages, all frequencies." "Transmitting now," Lieutenant Mira confirmed, her fingers dancing across the console. No response. Vazik's eyes narrowed. "Dispatch an interceptor squadron. If they won't communicate, they'll face consequences." As 12 Thoraxian interceptors screamed away from the station, the mystery ship finally moved. It didn't flee or attack. It simply adjusted position, revealing its full silhouette against the stars. "Magnify," Vazik ordered, his voice suddenly hushed. The view screen zoomed in on the vessel's hull. There, emblazoned on the side in a language most species had been forced to forget, Terran Alliance vessel DFI. The bridge fell silent. Everyone present knew the stories. 30 years ago, the Galactic Council had declared the human species too dangerous to exist within civilized space. Their homeworld had been quarantined, their colonies disbanded, their ships hunted down. Official records stated that humanity had been successfully contained and eventually died out due to resource limitations. Yet here was a human warship, cutting-edge and battle-ready, at the very heart of Council space. "Impossible," Vazik whispered. Captain Ilara Wright stood on the bridge of the TAV Defiance, her steel-gray eyes reflecting the tactical displays surrounding her. At 45, she carried herself with the rigid posture of someone who'd spent their life fighting. A jagged scar ran from her left temple to her jaw, a souvenir from the Battle of Proxima, when the Council first turned on humanity. "They've deployed interceptors," Captain, reported Kai Nakamura, her tactical officer. Young, brilliant, and born in space, Kai had never set foot on Earth. Ilara nodded. "As expected. Status of stealth systems. Partial decloak complete as ordered," Kai replied. "They can see us, but they're getting minimal readings on our offensive capabilities." "Perfect." Ilara turned to her communications officer, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair. "Lieutenant Chen, prepare the package for broadcast." "Ready when you are, Captain." Ilara took a deep breath. 30 years of hiding, rebuilding, and planning had led to this moment. The survival of her species depended on what happened next. "On my mark," she said firmly. 3, 2, 1. Broadcast. Across the Galactic Council space, on thousands of worlds and space stations, billions of beings suddenly found their communication devices hijacked by an unauthorized signal. Screens large and small displayed the same image: a human woman in a military uniform, her face bearing the marks of hardship and resolve. "I am Captain Ilara Wright of the Terran Alliance vessel Defiance," she began, her voice steady. "For 3 decades, the Galactic Council has told you that humanity is extinct, a dangerous species rightfully eliminated for the good of all. That was a lie." Images began flashing across screens: hidden human settlements, children born in secret, fleets constructed in the shadows of dead stars. "We did not die. We survived, we rebuilt, and now we have returned. Not for vengeance, but for justice. The Council attempted genocide against us, not because we were dangerous, but because we refused to bow to their demands. The broadcast shifted to show historical recordings. Council ships bombarding Earth cities, human colonies being raided, civilians executed. Today marks the end of hiding. We request an emergency session of the full Galactic Council. If our request is denied, or if any aggressive action is taken against this vessel, similar ships currently positioned throughout Council space will decloak and release all records of the atrocities committed against humanity. Ilara's face returned to the screen, her expression solemn but determined. We come seeking peace, but we are prepared for war. You have 6 hours to respond. Right out. The transmission ended, leaving billions across the galaxy in stunned silence. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council on Centralia Prime, pandemonium erupted. Representatives from 200 species shouted over one another, demanding explanations, calling for military action, or simply trying to comprehend how humans could have survived. High Counselor Tarvex, an ancient draconid whose obsidian scales gleamed under the chamber's lights, slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. The boom echoed throughout the chamber, bringing immediate silence. "Is this some kind of hoax?" he demanded, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. Admiral Peltora of the Council Defense Force stepped forward, her 4 arms clasped behind her back. "The vessel is authentic, High Counselor. Preliminary scans confirm human life signs aboard." "Impossible," shouted Representative Corin of the Mercantile Alliance. "The human containment was certified complete 25 years ago. Their technological capacity was eliminated." High Counselor Zarvex's yellow eyes narrowed. "Evidently not." He turned to a pale, ghost-like figure hovering at the edge of the chamber. "Director Shrell, explain this failure of intelligence." Director Shrell of the Council Information Bureau floated forward, his translucent form rippling with agitation. "High Counselor, all protocols were followed. Earth was quarantined, their colonies dismantled, their technology confiscated. We had no indication of survivors beyond isolated pockets that posed no threat. Yet here we are," Tarvex growled, "with a human warship broadcasting to the entire galaxy, threatening to expose Council operations, and demanding an audience." A murmur ran through the chamber. The term Council operations was carefully chosen. Few knew the full extent of what had been done to humanity. "What are our options?" asked Representative Lena of the Cephian Concordat, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with anxiety. Admiral Peltora stepped forward again. "We could mobilize the fleet, attempt to neutralize the vessel before." "Before what?" interrupted a new voice. All heads turned to see Counselor Trevak of the Andorian Collective, one of the oldest members of the Council. "Before they release evidence of our crimes. If they've managed to hide ships, colonies, and an entire resistance for 30 years, do you truly believe they haven't already secured contingency plans?" Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. "What exactly did this human captain request?" XR-Vex finally asked. "An emergency session of the full council," replied Director Shrell. "Which we are already conducting," noted Counselor Trevak. Zarvex's claws tapped against his staff as he considered the situation. "Very well. Send word that we will receive 1 representative from their vessel. They will be granted diplomatic immunity for the duration of these talks." His eyes narrowed. "But they must come unarmed and alone." 6 hours later, Captain Ilara Wright stood in a sleek shuttle approaching the Centralia Prime docking bay. She wore a formal Terran Alliance uniform, midnight blue with silver trim, bearing no weapons as required, but also no concessions to Council fashion or protocol. "Approaching final docking sequence," announced the shuttle's eye. "Council security vessels maintain escort formation." Ilara nodded, reviewing her mission parameters one last time. The future of humanity rested on what happened next, but she was not truly alone. Across Council space, 57 human vessels remained cloaked, watching and waiting. If she didn't return, Protocol Omega would activate automatically. The shuttle touched down with barely a tremor. As the hatch hissed open, Ilara stepped out into the grand reception hall of Centralia Prime, where the full Galactic Council awaited. 200 pairs of eyes, representing species from across the galaxy, fixed upon the first human most had seen in decades. Some stared in curiosity, others in fear, a few in barely disguised hatred. High Counselor Sarvex rose from his central throne. Captain Ilara Wright of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council after 30 years of your species' absence from civilized space. You claim to seek justice, yet you begin with threats. Explain yourself. Ilara met his gaze unflinchingly. When one negotiates with those who attempted to exterminate their species, High Counselor, leverage is not a threat. It's a necessity. Your species was deemed incompatible with galactic peace. Director Shrell interjected. Floating forward, humanity's aggression, unpredictability, and rapid technological advancement posed an unacceptable risk. That's the official narrative. Ilara agreed, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. But we both know the truth. Humanity wasn't quarantined because we were dangerous. We were targeted because we discovered something the Council wanted hidden. A murmur ran through the assembly. Many representatives looked confused. Clearly, not all knew the full story. I have no idea what you're referring to, Sarvex stated coldly. Ilara reached into her pocket, causing security drones to swoop closer, weapons trained on her. She slowly withdrew a small data crystal and held it up. This contains the complete record of human exploration vessel Pathfinder's discovery in the Cygnus Void 32 years ago. The ancient technology our scientists found there. The Council's demand that we turn it over. Our refusal. Her eyes narrowed. And then the Council's decision to erase us rather than allow us to share what we found with the galaxy. High Counselor Sarvex's scales darkened with rage. Those records were expunged. Yet here they are, Ilara replied quietly. Just as humanity is. You tried to erase us from history, but we endured. Now we demand recognition, reparations, and the right to rejoin galactic society as equals, not subjects. Around the chamber, representatives began whispering to one another. Some appeared shocked, others outraged. A few nodded slowly, as if confirming long-held suspicions. Counselor Trevak stepped forward. Perhaps it is time for truth, after so many years of carefully maintained lies. The chamber erupted into chaos once more as the foundations of 30 years of galactic politics began to crumble. And in the center of it all stood Captain Ilara Wright, a ghost from a supposedly extinct species, prepared to change the course of history, or end it, if necessary. Breaking chains. The Centralia Prime security forces formed a tight perimeter around Captain Ilara Wright as she stood resolute before the Galactic Council. The data crystal in her hand glinted under the chamber's lights, a small thing to have caused such uproar. This is outrageous, bellowed Representative Corin, his gelatinous form quivering with indignation. The human speaks of crimes without evidence beyond that unverified data crystal. I move that we confiscate it and end this farce. Several council members voiced agreement, but Councillor Trevak raised all 4 of his hands for silence. I was seated on this council 30 years ago, the ancient Andorian said, his voice wavering but clear. I remember the closed sessions, the debates, the votes, his luminous eyes fixed on High Counselor Sarvex, and I remember those who pushed hardest for humanity's containment. Sarvex's scales rippled with barely contained fury. You overstep, Trevak. Do I? The old Andorian glided closer to Ilara. Captain Wright, the crystal you hold. Does it contain information about the precursor network? A hushed silence fell over the chamber. Many representatives exchanged confused glances, while others, particularly those from the oldest council races, suddenly went very still. Ilara nodded. It does. The Pathfinder discovered a node of the network in the Cygnus Void. When our scientists activated it, they unlocked data that contradicted thousands of years of council historical records. Lies. Sarvex snarled, but his outburst lacked conviction. The truth, Ilara countered firmly, is that the so-called precursors were not a single ancient race as Council doctrine teaches, but a cooperative of species, including early humans who traveled the stars long before the Council existed. Images projected from the crystal now, ancient star maps, archaeological sites, genetic records, all pointing to humanity's earlier spacefaring civilization, wiped out in some cataclysm and forgotten by Earth's survivors as they rebuilt from primitive conditions. The Council's founders didn't discover faster-than-light travel, Ilara continued. They found it, just as we did, in the remains of older civilizations. The difference is that we were willing to share this knowledge freely. You chose to monopolize it, to control access to the stars themselves. This is exactly why humanity proved dangerous. Director Shrell interjected, his translucent form pulsing. Such knowledge in the hands of an unpredictable species threatened the very foundation of galactic order. You mean it threatened your power, Ilara corrected. Earth would have published the findings openly. Species still struggling with sublight travel would have gained equal footing overnight. The Council's technological advantage would have evaporated. Many representatives were now listening intently, their expressions shifting from skepticism to shock to outrage, not at the human, but at their own leadership. So instead, Ilara continued, her voice hardening, the Council declared us dangerous, imposed sanctions that crippled our economy, demanded we surrender all precursor data, and when we refused, she paused, letting the weight of history settle over the chamber. When we refused, you attempted to erase us from the galaxy. Aboard the Defiance, Lieutenant Commander Kai Nakamura monitored the broadcast from the Council chambers, tension visible in every line of his body. The fate of humanity now rested with Captain Wright, but contingencies remained in place. Status report, he demanded, scanning the tactical displays. All systems nominal, reported Tactical Officer Lopes. Stealth systems at 98% efficiency. The Council fleet is maintaining distance. And our other assets. Communications Officer Chen looked up from her station. All ships holding position. The network is standing by. Kai nodded grimly. The human resistance had spent decades building their shadow fleet, vessels constructed in hidden shipyards beyond Council space, crewed by those born in exile or who had escaped the initial purge. If Wright failed, if the Council decided to finish what they'd started 30 years ago, humanity would not go quietly this time. A soft ping from Chen's console drew his attention. "Sir," she said, her voice tight with controlled excitement, "we're receiving transmissions from across Council space. Civilian networks are buzzing with the Captain's revelations. Public channels on 17 worlds show protests forming." Kai allowed himself a small smile. The truth has power, especially when it's been buried for so long. Back in the Council chamber, Ilara stood unwavering as the arguments raged around her. Some representatives called for her immediate arrest, others demanded access to the precursor data, and a growing faction insisted on a full investigation into the decision to target humanity. High Counselor Xarvex finally slammed his staff down with enough force to crack the marble floor. "Enough," he roared. "Captain Wright, you have made serious accusations against this Council based on ancient history. What exactly do you hope to achieve here? Your species remains outnumbered, outgunned, and unwelcome in much of civilized space." Ilara's expression remained calm. "We don't seek war, High Counselor. We seek recognition. The quarantine of Earth must end immediately. Human colonies must be granted legal status. And the truth about the precursor network, about what was done to us, must be acknowledged publicly." "Impossible," Xarvex hissed. "It would destabilize the entire Council." "Perhaps it should be destabilized," came a new voice. All eyes turned to Representative Lena of the Cephian Concordat, her luminous patterns flashing with determination. "If our unity is built on lies and genocide, what exactly are we preserving?" Several other representatives murmured agreement, moving physically to stand near Lena. a symbolic gesture of alignment in council proceedings. Zarvex's eyes narrowed dangerously. This human has been permitted to speak too long. Security, escort Captain Wright to detention for further questioning. The security drones moved forward, weapon systems humming to life, but Ilara remained perfectly still. "I wouldn't do that," she said quietly. "You are in no position to make threats," Zarvex snarled. "It's not a threat. It's a reminder." Ilara tapped a small communicator on her wrist. "Defiance, status report." Lieutenant Commander Nakamura's voice echoed through the chamber. "Council forces are surrounding the Centralia Prime Station, Captain. 3 heavy cruisers have moved into strike position. Implement Ghost Protocol," Ilara ordered calmly. Across the chamber, displays that had been showing the Council's insignia suddenly changed. Live feeds from space around Centralia Prime appeared, showing the Council's military vessels positioning for attack. Then, one by one, patches of space rippled as stealth fields deactivated. Human ships, sleek, powerful, and with weapons armed, appeared throughout the formation. The Council representatives gasped collectively. What had seemed like a lone human vessel was suddenly revealed as a coordinated fleet, having penetrated to the very heart of Council space undetected. "We came prepared for all outcomes," Ilara explained. "My ship is not alone. Human vessels have been positioned near every major Council world for the past week. If I don't return to the Defiance within the hour, or if any aggressive action is taken against our ships, all human vessels will broadcast the complete historical record to every communication device in Council space simultaneously." Admiral Peltora rushed to a tactical display, her 4 arms working furiously. "Impossible. Our sensors would have." "Your sensor technology is based on principles established by the Council founders millennia ago," Ilara interrupted. "Humanity has been developing alternatives for 30 years, driven by necessity and the knowledge from the precursor network." High Councilor Zarvex's scales had darkened to near black, a sign of extreme rage in his species. "You would risk galactic war." "We would risk anything to secure our right to exist," Ilara replied, her voice steady. "But war benefits no one. That's why I'm here, to offer a path forward without bloodshed." Councilor Trevak moved to the center of the chamber, positioning himself symbolically between Ilara and Zarvex. "I move that we put Captain Wright's demands to an immediate vote of the full Council." "Seconded," Representative Lena called out quickly. "This is highly irregular," Director Shrell began. "So was the attempted extinction of an entire species," Trevak cut in sharply. "I believe we have all heard enough to make an informed decision." Zarvex looked around the chamber, reading the shifting mood. Many representatives who had entered hostile to the human now appeared thoughtful, even sympathetic. The political landscape was changing beneath his feet. "Very well," he finally conceded. "We shall vote on the matter of ending Earth's quarantine status and recognizing human sovereign rights." 3 hours later, Captain Ilara Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as Council vessels adjusted their positions from combat formation to honor escort. The vote had been close, -112 to 88, but humanity had prevailed. After 30 years of exile, Earth was rejoining the galactic community. Transmission from Councilor Trevak. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen reported. The elderly Andorian's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Wright, the Council has ratified the preliminary agreement. Earth's quarantine will be lifted immediately. A truth commission will be established to investigate the events of 30 years ago." And he paused, his expression solemn. "The precursor network data will be made available to all Council species." Ilara nodded. "Thank you, Councilor. Your support was crucial today." "I merely did what should have been done 3 decades ago," Trevak replied. "There will be resistance, you understand. High Councilor Harvey and his faction won't surrender power easily." "We're prepared for a difficult transition," Ilara assured him. "Humanity has learned patience." After the transmission ended, Lieutenant Commander Nakamura approached her. "Orders, Captain." Ilara looked at the tactical display, where dozens of human ships were now visible to Council sensors, their stealth systems deactivated as a gesture of good faith. "Signal the fleet to maintain position, but stand down from combat readiness," she instructed. "Then send a message to Earth. Tell them." She paused, the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. "Tell them we're coming home." Kai nodded, then hesitated. "Captain, do you think the Council will honor the agreement? After everything they've done?" Ilara's eyes remained fixed on the stars beyond the view screen, stars that had been forbidden to humanity for too long. "They will, because we've changed the equation. Before, they saw us as a threat to be eliminated. Now they understand we're a force to be reckoned with." She turned to face her second-in-command, a small smile touching her lips. "But more importantly, we've shown them something they never expected." "What's that, Captain?" "That humanity doesn't seek revenge. We could have attacked when they were vulnerable. We could have exposed their secrets indiscriminately. Instead, we chose diplomacy, even after all they did to us." Her smile faded, replaced by steely determination. "But make no mistake, this is just the beginning. The real work starts now." As the Defiance prepared to lead the human fleet on their journey back to Earth, messages flooded in from hidden colonies and resistance cells across the galaxy. Humanity was stepping out of the shadows, reclaiming their place among the stars, and bringing with them truths that would reshape galactic society forever. The species that had been deemed too dangerous to exist had not only survived, they had returned stronger, wiser, and ready to forge a new future. Not through conquest, but through persistence, ingenuity, and an unwavering belief in their right to exist freely among the stars. The myth of humanity's extinction was officially over. The age of humanity's resurgence had just begun.